Two working professionals finally walk through their front door after a grinding 10-hour day, completely drained of physical energy and mental bandwidth. Let's assume she works in marketing, earning $62,000, and he is in IT, earning $71,000. Combined, they bring in $133,000 a year. Statistically, that places this household squarely in the top 25. Why does successfully reaching the top economic quartile result in daily financial survival mode rather than deep structural security? We have operated for decades on a basic mathematical assumption. If one person earning $50,000 can support a family, then two people earning $50,000 each should yield the exact same lifestyle, plus a massive $50,000 surplus buffer for savings and investments. In 2003, Harvard bankruptcy expert Elizabeth Warren and researcher Amelia Tyagi analyzed thousands of financial failures and identified a systemic flaw in that assumption. They called it the two-income trap. After studying over 2,000 families, they uncovered a counterintuitive statistical reality. Modern dual-income families were actually more likely to file for bankruptcy than the single-income families of previous generations. To understand how working twice as hard makes a household more vulnerable, we have to pull apart the hidden math. We need to look at the specific systemic variables that quietly consumed the second income. The dual income standard successfully hid extreme vulnerability behind higher earnings, effectively installing a structural trap at the center of the middle-class economy. In 1970, female workforce participation was approximately 43%. The quintessential middle-class model relied on one primary earner and one parent managing the household. That single income was highly efficient. A typical family could secure a median-priced home by allocating only about 25% of their gross pay. They funded a vehicle, healthcare, and education with a comfortable margin remaining for savings. Crucially, they possessed an unmonetized labor reserve. The stay-at-home parent acted as the household's emergency economic shock absorber. If the primary earner suffered a layoff or illness, the second adult could enter the workforce to keep the family solvent. By 2023, over 60% of married mothers were working. We took our emergency backup plan and activated it as our default operating state, burning our reserve capacity just to maintain the baseline. This chart compares median wage growth to modern expenses. While household incomes are objectively higher today than in 1970, the core pillars of a middle-class life expanded to absorb the extra capital. Median home prices doubled relative to inflation. Healthcare spending surged by 600%. College education spiked a staggering 1,200%. We also introduced massive new fixed costs. Childcare, largely internalized in the single-income era, was commodified. Today, daycare requires $11,000 to $30,000 annually per child, depending on the region. Modern families are essentially treading water. Their extra income is fully committed to inflated fixed costs, and they have already exhausted their emergency labor reserve. Let's run the exact calculus on a $120,000 household. One partner makes $70,000, which we will assign to the core baseline expenses. This large block represents the $50,000 second income. We need to isolate its marginal net utility. The first deduction is the progressive tax penalty. The second income stacks directly on top of the first, subjecting it to higher marginal brackets. State, federal, and payroll taxes immediately slice away roughly $18,000. Next is the childcare crisis. To deploy that second worker, the household must purchase replacement domestic labor. Subtract an average of $15,000 for one child in full-time daycare. Now we deduct the hard cost of working. A mandatory second commute requires fuel, vehicle depreciation, maintenance, and parking. We cut away a conservative $8,000. Finally, we apply the exhaustion tax. Dual worker burnout forces families to heavily rely on convenience services, takeout, meal delivery, and cleaning. Subtract another $7,000. Out of a $50,000 gross salary, the actual net contribution to the family's wealth is $2,000. Translate that into human capital. The second earner sacrifices 40 to 50 hours a week of their physical presence, grinds through a commute, and misses family dinners to generate a net profit of approximately $1 per hour. The W-2 forms tell a comforting story, but the gross second income is largely an illusion. Its marginal net utility is mathematically negligible when weighed against the domestic and psychological labor required to produce it. The danger of that illusion is how we act on it. Families look at their combined $120,000 gross income and make permanent, structural lifestyle decisions based on a number they do not actually get to keep. They apply for maximum mortgages and multiple auto loans. The institutional banking algorithms evaluate the combined gross revenue and approve the debt, assuming both incomes will flow perfectly, without interruption, for 30 years. This creates a household model with zero fault tolerance. If either partner experiences a health crisis, severe burnout, or a layoff, the math fails instantly. There is no slack in the system. According to the Federal Reserve, nearly 40% of American adults cannot cover a $400 emergency without borrowing. A vast portion of that demographic consists of high-earning, highly leveraged, dual-income households operating at maximum capacity. This map illustrates the systemic mechanism that inflated those fixed costs to begin with, the zero-sum bidding war for static resources. When two-income families became the standard, dual-earning couples suddenly had twice the purchasing power, competing for the exact same supply of houses. Predictably, they used that extra leverage to bid up the exact same basic properties that a single income used to buy. The same dynamic weaponized the education system. Because public school quality is tied to local property taxes, parents deployed their dual incomes to outbid each other for homes in elite districts. The inflated mortgage is effectively a massive hidden private school tuition. Once a household signs for a mortgage sized for two incomes, they are legally tethered to that debt. Any attempt to downshift or reduce work hours risks immediate financial insolvency. The immediate practical reality is that families currently locked into massive mortgages and heavy fixed costs cannot simply resign from their jobs tomorrow morning. This balance sheet models the one-income foundation. We move away from the trap where fixed costs span both incomes. Non-negotiable living expenses must be covered by the primary earner alone. The second income becomes a wealth-building engine to fund emergencies, eliminate debt, and acquire investments. By refusing to absorb the second income into the baseline, the household reclaims its fault tolerance. One partner can step back to raise a child, launch a business, or handle a medical crisis without facing imminent foreclosure. Ultimately, financial security depends on preserving systemic margin rather than chasing absolute cash flow. True financial security is the discipline of refusing to let your lifestyle consume every dollar, preserving your flexibility to weather the storm, instead of sacrificing it just to appear well.